welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And me, Robbie.
And we are back with our spoiler-filled review of The Strangers Chapter 2.
Yes, the boys are indeed back in town. So quite interestingly, we did our spoiler-free episode. So go and check that out. And then we're recording our spoiler-filled, this one straight after. And in about the 3 or 4 minutes since we recorded that, my opinion on this film has just dramatically decreased. I don't know what's happened, but I just went and I was just like, what? I was just like, no, that film wasn't any better than the first one. It's equally as dog shit. And I've just done, not a 180 on it, because I thought it was
Between
okay.
moments, yeah.
But in about 5 minutes, I've just realised that I'm just pissed off at it. You know, I don't know why. It's just happened.
Well, that is fine. We did not say that it was a good or even great film. We played around the line of that being. It felt like the first one was like the sanitized version, and now it's like, well, fuck this film.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, we mentioned in the if you listen to the spoiler-free episode, we mentioned that we found that this was like an extended chase scene that just went on and on, with a few moments of other characters getting a step in, and mainly just following the Maya character as she goes from one spot to another and to another to another. You know, and that was a lot of what this film is. So yeah, I said, like, I don't know. I think part of the first bit of it, somewhat, not that I was like loving it. I think this might come down to the fact that there were such low expectations from the first one.
Maybe.
That I was fully expecting to absolutely hate this. That when I didn't completely hate it, I'm like, yes, it's alright. it's like watchable almost. You know what I mean? That's where I kind of came in there.
It is, but it's almost like there were some gems in there, you know. But mostly it's just a fucking chase scene. And it made me so exhausted that I was like, okay, the first chase scene, this is decent, this is okay, I expect this. And then like she gets out of it and it's like, oh, okay, well, now there's another chase scene. And then after that, there's just fucking another chase scene. And maybe it's
I can't remember. I'm forgetting what all of the locations are at this point. We've only just watched it purely because it is like, which one is it?
Well, you have the hospital at the start.
Yeah, the hospital at the start, which I think I actually thought it got slightly better once they got out of that location, because I thought that was kind of somewhat bland. It wasn't completely, but the the whole setup in the hospital of, you know, where she is, and then having them basically, you hear noises outside and stuff like that. You get the feeling. So basically, they have a scene when the cops that have talked to her. So this is already establishing that this is literally like, you know, like the day after it's happened or something. Yeah. You know, it's like straight on. You know, which first straight away felt like it's like, well, maybe it would have made sense for the rest of the town not to realise that she's still alive, but to at least give her a couple of weeks so that you've got some kind of a recovery, because she's just been stabbed in the intestines, and that's not normally so you can walk afterwards.
No.
I don't have that from personal experience. I just believe that is the case.
Well, we can run a trial.
You know, considering that when most people have like a back pain, or when they have a certain kind of stitch in or they have appendicitis, they struggle to even walk. I've got the feeling that a knife into your intestines will cause a similar kind of pain of, if I even try to stretch, I will be in severe pain.
It's probably equal to that. And speaking of the sheriff, who is played by, Richard Brake, who is a menacing looking fucker. I'm sure he's probably nice.
I'm sure he's lovely.
But he's menacing as fuck.
You look at him and you think either he's going to kill me, rape me, or he diddling.
Yeah.
And I apologise for that, because, you know, in many ways, if we hadn't grown to love William Dafoe, we'd probably say the same three things about him.
Probably. He's got to show me his cock.
Yeah. If you didn't know who William Dafoe was, and you walked up and you saw his face smiling at you down an alleyway, you'd piss your pants straight away. But luckily, we've grown to love him.
We have grown to love the Green Goblin.
But yeah, not quite the same for Richard Brake.
But I get the same thing when we watched World War Z, and it was like, Matthew Fox is in this film, and then it's like, nah, it's not. Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's like this. Richard Brake is in it, looking menacingly for about 3-4 scenes, and maybe he'll be in the next one a lot more. But it's just like, it's genuinely, this is how the film plays out. She's chased from the hospital, and then she's at a barn, and then somebody goes, I'm not calling the sheriff, bam, she dies.
Yeah.
And then she's chased from the barn, and then she escapes from that, and she's in a car, and then she jumps out of the car, and then she does some in a forest, and she does some Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, I'm gonna heal myself in the woods, and then she's chased again this time by a pig, by a giant warthog.
Big hog. That was your cameo.
That was my cameo. And then she's chased somewhere else. And then she's chased somewhere else. And in between that, Richard Brake goes, we'll find this girl. And maybe he's in on it, you don't know. Maybe. And his deputy, it's just
mainly after the chase, the following the hog thing, it's mainly when she ends up basically nearly back at the house of the people whose car she escaped from earlier.
And then she gets chased again.
And then she gets and once she's in the house, yes, then we start the chase again. We get a little break for a moment, and then we start the chase again. To pick out the parts, I think it's easier to pick out the parts where I was like, I was somewhat enjoying this than to pick out the parts when it was like that. Because the rest of it, basically all the parts I mainly mentioned, I think, could be the things I was like, this bit was okay.
Yeah.
Anything else in the running time, so if you're thinking you've only mentioned probably about 10 minutes worth of content, maybe that's why.
But it genuinely feels as if like he had this trilogy planned out, or he had 2 films planned out, and he had about 8 or 9 different ideas for chases that could happen. And they were like, well, we have 2 maybe, that's a bit excessive.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't think of like, I don't want to have 2. I want to film all of them, and then they just stitch them together. Like it's an exhausting film, and the more I talk about it, the more annoyed I'm getting. I don't know why.
I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that came to mind when you're describing something of that detail is kind of like Peter Jackson stretching out The Hobbit into a trilogy.
It is.
It was like that. It's like, and now we're going to watch them walk for a while because, we don't have any reason for this. We're going to add in this character. She has nothing to do with anything else in the entire book or anything, but we're going to include you, and then we're going to include a final film that is basically just one long battle that's not any better, that is much worse than any battle in any of the films.
And not only that, but like the battles in Lord of the Rings are great.
Yeah.
But they're also managed well, and it's not just... The thing with the Battle of the Five Armies was you watched it and you were just like, this is a battle and I'm fucking bored of it.
Yeah, it's a battle of the CGI fucking army.
It's about CGI,
A battle like much worse CGI than the original films, which is weird. But anyway, that was a detour there. But we're talking about probably still a more interesting film. So, but yeah, to go out to some of the bits that I think that were working around them. Now, I did say in the last one, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I think it's just down to this weird mishmash that you get with these films when they're cut. Like I mentioned about the kind of cuts that have like happened with this film. And I think the weird thing you get when cuts happens, I haven't told you what yet. I'm still not going to tell you.
No, keep it.
I think I'm going to keep that in. I'll keep you going. I'm going to keep you chasing.
Keep you chasing
until the very last minute. You're going to chase it.
I realised that I've been so annoyed. I haven't done our usual plug. So usually I'm not as annoyed as this. But make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. Carry on talking, please. Because if I talk too much, I will just...
In the spoiler-free one, we had like the most perfect segue. In this one, it was trash.
It was trash because I'm filled with rage. I'm very much like that hog, that CGI hog. I'm just one-track minded.
Yeah, I just want to get that.
Just want to get that out there.
So, like... I think the cuts or the ways in which they're either trying to add or remove stuff from this. So I did say that I think it weirdly is you could absolutely have a horror film that is mainly just all about a chase. There's definitely horror films that are basically mainly just chase, but it is all about like in that execution of how you're going to make each part of that chase feel more interesting and more have different details that make them feel separate from each other.
Yeah.
And this has a few parts that make it feel like more interesting, but the problem is that the majority feels like we're just getting more of the same, and that's why we aren't getting like a mixture. I said in the last one, in the spoiler free, about like almost a mixture of different types of kills and stuff also could have varied that up. So at least you feel like every time she's getting somewhere, something really bad's happening, but not just like quick, like you have the one lady who, barely says 2 lines and then gets an arrow through the chest.
Yeah.
That's not like that, and it's fine as in like a sudden like death kind of thing, but it was one where you're like, she's going to die now. Like, I don't know why my head literally went, she's going to die now. Like, she's literally talking to her, but, if she's not the bad guy, then she's going to die. Like, this is kind of what the stranger here leads to, is that they're literally either going to turn out to be one of the strangers or someone who's corrupt, or they're going to or if she's found someone who's not, they're going to die.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. But like in the hospital early on, when we don't see anybody of the people dying in the hospital, which just seems like a really odd choice for a horror film to be like, so she's in a room and then suddenly it's going to go really quiet and then we're going to hear someone running for a minute and then it's going to go quiet again and she's going to be like, what's going on? Okay, build suspense, it's a dark, suspenseful hospital. I don't know what every single hospital's like in America, but I've literally never heard of hospitals that aren't actually fucking brimming with people in the modern age. And I'm pretty sure I've heard that related in America as well, that they absolutely have not got enough people for how many people tend to be going into emergency rooms. And this is an emergency room. This is literally an emergency hospital. Literally says emergency, as in it is for the emergencies, and there's fucking no one there. That's weird already, because if she walked out and there were piles of bodies everywhere where they've literally slaughtered, at least that would be like, oh fuck, okay, that's interesting. But instead she walks out and we don't see any of the bodies of who have apparently been killed. We see one bit when there's a lady outside smoking, and the next minute there's like a splat on the window.
Or to counter that, if you wanted it to be like the town are in on this or the town no, you could show people leaving the hospital on purpose. Instead,
because we have the calf scene where a lot of the people in town are not aware that she's still alive.
No.
And that's when he tells... So this is what actually makes you think that Rich Brake's sheriff character is actually not maybe so much in on it, because he's actually trying to quiet him down as if he knows something, but if everyone else knows that, then he knows that this is almost going to lead to a problem.
Yeah.
The problem with that then, though, is then if he knows that, and he knows that something probably happened if someone knows, is that not the point when you go... Fuck, now we've got to go and fucking guard her. But instead he's like, oh, okay, everyone fucking knows now, and I'm just not going to do anything now. In fact, should we go and, in about half an hour, you'll see us one more time again, where we'll go and check for that van in the field, and then I'll see that van, but I won't tell you about that. So now I'm on the other side. Now am I a bad guy again?
Then you're not going to see me again.
And then you're not going to see me again. No, I'm not really doing any of that. So we get those few characters where we get like 3 scenes, I think at most, where they take place in the cafe. The sheriff's always in there, and it's literally like as if you can feel like all of these cafe scenes were filmed for probably the entire film, like in like a couple of days. They're just like, right, now we're just going to do a couple of days of just people talking in the cafe and being somewhat nefarious or somewhat like avoiding contact. And we get those, and we just keep getting little reactions from this little villages. The problem is, those town people only seem to exist in a cafe.
Yeah.
They exist nowhere else in this film.
No.
Anyone who she does find anywhere else are not the people that were part of that cafe that were built in the first film as being almost like a little bit of a weird cafe of people. I don't even think the cafe looks the same as the first one. I'm not going to lie. I remember it.
Because it feels like they just filmed all of the scenes.
But this looks more like a diner, kind of like more dinerish than the first time when it looked a bit more grungy than it did. But I'm sure it is the same one. It just the way it was shot just looked
maybe
different.
That's it. Maybe it's how they shot.
It was all seemed to be shot from like one corner of the room.
Pretty much.
So everyone was like across, looking back over at the sheriff. But yeah, so all of that stuff that felt like in the first film that we were going to find out more of in the second one. And we only get like these tiny little bits of information still. We only get them pop up occasionally. It feels so weird that we're getting this. It's like, it's either just going to be a chase film or you're going to try and add these in. But those bits don't seem significant enough to make it. The only things that are somewhat are the flashbacks.
Yeah. And that's what I liked. Those scenes in the cafe, I liked those because that's what I was interested in.
Yeah.
I was interested in the mystery of like this weird backwoods town, who's in on it, who isn't, and you get it so few and far between. Like in the opening scene, it reveals that like one of the waitresses is in on it, one of the women, and I found that really interesting because I was like, are they going to do kind of a bit like a Scream thing in a way, where you're gonna have her interacting with the other character, interacting with Maya without being in the outfit.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have that? Because that, to me, would sow a bit more of that mistrust. And those scenes that do have that, like when they're in the car, that's good. When you're kind of thinking like, are all of these people in on it? Who's that? But it's so few and far between there. I just felt like I'd clocked out of it.
That's part of the problem, is that when you're going to introduce in the first film a cast of like the local townspeople, the weird mechanic, the sheriff, the ladies that actually work there, the waitress and staff, and a bunch of like other younger guys. I think the guys, the guy that lives with them, the weird guy. What I can't.
The weird guy with the tattoo on his
Gregory, I think it is Gregory.
Maybe.
I think it was Gregory. I think they were the ones that were eating burgers in the first film. I somewhat remember the boyfriend in the first one going to get like food for them, like burgers, and there's a weird group of guys at the table. I think they're the same people. I think they're the same two guys are the guys they meet that are at the house that are mainly is the focus in the car scene and towards the end of the film. But if you're going to have all those, then why are we not like kind of leaning more into the idea of the corruption of the town, and why are we not having the whole? Because in the first film, it even had like boys on the bike, and there was always a weird kind of religious-y kind of feeling about it. Like even in the original Strangers, there was like these weird boys on the bike that looked all like dressed up and stuff like that, and they had that in the first part as well. In chapter 1 as well, they showed that. So why are we not getting a little bit more of her like being in the town and maybe discovering that there's a weird thing about this? Because there's not really. This is what kind of makes the budget feel like it's really lacking, I guess, because there's no real town. We see a cabin, we see an emergency room where it's a building where they've obviously just CGI'd emergency onto the side of it. You've got a diner, and obviously the gas station. That seems to be the entire that right now seems like that is everything in this town, and it doesn't feel like it's built up at all.
No,
there's no like who's doing this. There's no like mystery of like which of these townspeople actually are. And again, I know that also stems into a lot of other horror films that do the same kind of thing. A weird religious cult in the town. Maybe they're trying to avoid it being too much about this big cult and things like that. But it just feels like we're now got into the second part, and we have very few questions answered compared to the first part, and then it also doesn't leave enough that you're like, how do I want to know
exactly
about this now? Like, it feels too much like we know basically 2 out of the 3 identities of them, we know from what we can assume anyway, so there's only one of them we don't know. Which still feels pretty, like, in my head, still felt like Gregory was still one of the main, thing. But again, he hasn't been chastened, so if I look to the film, you probably timeline, that probably wouldn't work. So whoever it is, it's just body type. He just looks like the same actor under the body she thinks it is, but it's probably, there's a twist on that. But even when we do later get the reveal, we've followed the backstory. So we get the backstory of a little girl, who is who is kind of a loner, kind of by herself a little bit,
like an orphanage or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. What it is, I can't tell if it's an orphanage, or it's just like a Catholic school or like that kind of thing. Or
I got the impression it was a orphanage, but it was like one of those. They have them more in America where it's like run by Catholics or Christians, and it's kind of very religious heavy.
It's hard because then they go to a scene there where on a farm and stuff like that, and that looked like it would be separate because all the girls are like riding, but it could be the same place, I guess, couldn't it?
Maybe.
It could all be the same, but that's what made it, because they had the girls who all seemed to be in different clothing, so they didn't feel very much like orphans. Who is Tamara? The girl that is Tamara.
They were all in the white shirts, weren't they?
No, when they were on the thing, she was in like a jean jacket and an actual dress and stuff, and she had her own bike and stuff, which made her seem like she was separate from the other one. So I don't know if it's a school or whatever that kind of is. Again, we don't get any of that like church or school like actual emphasizing in the film that any of that exists after these scenes. But these scenes when you get to see her kind of like the other boy, there's a boy who she likes who is basically a bully, and she seems to be drawn in by his kind of bully like behaviour. Then she doesn't like it when he is interested in the Tamara girl. And again, this is all stuff that probably, if you put it all together, is probably like 3 minutes. But it's spread sporadically across every time we see like the baby doll face one, I think it is, like it goes under there. But it also gives you the weird. Yes, we've followed this backstory like now through the film where we get to see her like she kills a field mouse. We realise that she's actually she seems like she's not so like maybe misunderstood, and then you're like, okay, now she's just fucking crazy,
she's just cooked,
you know. Yeah. And we get a scene that's towards the end of the film where she kills Tamara.
Yeah,
which I liked that scene. I thought that was quite creepy and quite well done. You know? So that was quite a fun way to reveal the origin almost of the Tamara. You know, is Tamara there kind of scene. But it's also kind of like when her mask is revealed at the end of the film and they pull her mask off and they reveal the face of the person. You're just because throughout the film I think they were trying to tease like, oh, the doctor might actually be who this girl is, or the weird girl in the diner might be this girl. Anyone who had black hair and dark eyes was basically like, you could be them. You could the other lady that's in the house with them, the one who decides to eat with a razor blade sharp knife with an apple. Well, seems to be
That's an old school move.
It's an old school move, but again, she's also got dark hair and darker eyes. So I feel like they were somewhat trying to be like, any of these could actually end up being who this is, even though again, timeline probably wouldn't make half of them make sense. But when the mask's pulled off, and at first I was just like, is that boy? Who is that? Like, at first I was just like, I know that's the girl who we've been talking about, but I thought it was going to be at least someone who we've actually got to know any other time in this. But it's just, I don't know. Maybe she was shown somewhere else. I didn't recognise her at all.
No, well, she's shown at the start as the waitress.
Is that the waitress?
Yeah.
I thought that was the other one. Is the waitress?
No, that's the waitress. That one.
Oh, I thought that was the different mask that was shown at the start because I thought the mask she bought on a different mask because she doesn't look the same. The waitress was like smaller and thinner.
Yeah,
this one was.
It was the waitress.
Was that the waitress one?
It was the waitress.
So the one they revealed right at the beginning.
Which is
why
that
makes me even fucking less. Why fucking reveal that at the start of the film?
Well, I thought that worked because then you knew who one of them was, but you didn't know who the other one was. So I thought that was a bit.
So the whole film did follow that backstory. I just didn't think she looked like her.
Maybe.
Like when she took the mask off, I thought she had much like wider eyes than the waitress in the thing. But again, we'd only got like 2 shots at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was her. But then I because I thought, oh, they've got to do something with this. Like, it's got to be. So there's got to be some other way in which maybe she survives, and then the police say, like, don't leave the area. So she has to stay there, and then she starts mingling with the townsfolk. But instead, it's just chase after chase after chase.
Yeah.
And then she bumps into Gregory, who's is very obviously the one there because they're like, oh, his grandparents left him a bunch of money at a speedboat. He's got the speedboat left, and I was like, well. Then his parents died and he was in an orphanage.
Well, he's got the same tattoo as the waitress as well, which also seems like but that's just where we're like, are these just red herrings to just throw us off the scent, even though he looks body type perfectly with the guy that's chasing all the time.
But, and he's just constantly, he's just a bellend.
But it probably will end up not being him.
Probably not.
I feel like it won't be.
Somehow man is now like a really skinny 60-year-old man. The thing that I was hoping for, and maybe this is just me, but I'm reading 11/22/63 at the moment, and I've just got to the part where he's got to Derry, and I was watching this and I was like, I hope they do something where like people in Derry kind of know what's going on, and it's like inherently violent, and they kind of like turn a blind eye to it almost. And I was thinking, are we going to do something like that? Like, is this do the town know, but they're keeping it quiet for whatever reasons, or do the town suspect? And they just didn't do any of it. Instead, it's just
the town do know, and they don't do anything about it. We know that they know. It's just there's no other character development to make that go anywhere. So
exactly.
They have done technically exactly that. They've just done it in the most weakest way you could do it, which is by being like, well, basically, we can tell straight away that these guys all know something. Gregory even says that we know about these and nothing was really done about it in a scene which feels like he was confessing to everything kind of thing, but you're like, okay. But all of them are not doing anything, but the problem is that we never get to know any of these other characters at all, that it feels like it has no impact that everyone in the town knows, because we've never even got to know any of the town.
No.
We'll actually see the town.
And we're not fleshing it out. So by the time we get to the 3rd chapter, you've sat through however long this dog shit is, and 90 minutes. of chases.
And right now it feels like the third chapter's just going to literally be like pick up from exactly the end scene, and the guy just starts fucking chasing her again.
Exactly.
I'm not going to lie, right now
God.
it feels like chapter 3 is literally going to be like he sees her in the bush and goes, fucking
Fucking
chase!
do it. Oh,
And
God.
that's it. Like we've now got 2 of them now chasing down for her to probably then end up in another building to then find out that, oh shit, there's a bunch of the people here, or I don't know, fucking whatever it is, a cult of them or whatever, they're all here, and then she's going to get chased again.
I might have
She will
to
somehow escape and then chase.
just do it. I might have to 11/22/63 Renny Harlin. Go back and stop him from making this films. And just say, look, nobody wants to see
It
the
always
chapter.
comes with a sacrifice. I'm
It
pretty
always
sure in
does.
that case you'd have to sacrifice Deep Blue Sea.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not going back. I'm not saying kill him as a child. I'm saying go back, stop this film. Maybe drop.
But there's always consequences of
Yeah,
your
that's true.
actions.
No
you will
spoilers.
come back and find out that chapter 1 and 2 does not exist, and then you will actually find out that Deep Blue Sea never existed.
No, somehow you went back and scrubbed the record
Or
on it.
Cliffhanger.
Oh, fuck.
You'll be like, fucking Sylvester Stallone.
If Cliffhanger doesn't exist, I don't know why I'm alive. Personally, you know.
You'll find out that based on your actions, Sylvester Stallone hung himself.
Yeah.
He hung himself in late 1980s after the film he thought was going to be a hit was suddenly removed from him, and all of his carear died after it.
Which obviously
Because
stops.
he never got to hang from a cliff.
He never got to hang
so
from
he
a
hung
cliff.
himself from
So
a
he hung
rafter.
himself, yeah. It's fuck me. And then they filmed it and just called it Rafter Hanger. You know? Snuff becomes legal, and it's a twisted timeline I've created, all because I want to stop this dog.
Hello,
shit,
Cool
you know?
J never gets some kind of a film career. You fucking messed up the world.
I've messed with him. He keeps on rapping. Makes
Well,
it worse.
you don't know how badly that affects the timeline. For all you know, in 2040, LL Cool J wins the Oscar, and it literally brings world peace.
Yeah, you never know. If he doesn't do Deep Blue Sea, 50 Cent never goes on to make Blood in the Sand for Xbox 360, and I'm sure that has some kind of catastrophic effect for the universe. Genuinely, so we've just hit the 27-minute mark in recording, and I
haven't
don't
mention that much.
because nothing happens in the film.
No.
Like what you could do is look at a picture of Richard Brake, watch somebody run on a treadmill for about 20 minutes, look at the picture of Richard Brake again, repeat that for about 90 minutes, shit yourself just because it's that bad and the experience is uncomfortable, and then go home and drop like however much a cinema ticket is these days, drop that in the bin on your way back. Just don't see it.
It's not good, but it's not good. But I wasn't sat there bored though. I wasn't bored out of my mind, and that for me is a thing, because there's been lots of horror films where I'd be like, oh, when is this going to be over soon, kind of thing. And it never quite hit that point because it's only like an hour and a half long. So that was the thing. If I would sat there and I started getting really like, oh, what time is it? When's this over? Kind of thing, which I've had with a few horror films.
Yeah.
It didn't hit that point of TGIB. So that for me is like on that line of still living with the controversial opinion that majority of horror films mainly are somewhere between trash and just under good, and then there are the good ones, and then there are great ones, but there is a majority that is kind of that level of you'll watch it because it's entertaining. It's like most of what Shudder does.
Oh, yeah, kind of.
I just throw out hot takes now.
Throw
no
out
one's
takes.
listening to this episode anyway because no one has saw this film.
No.
After chapter 1, I bet the box office is fake. This is literally like I don't even know why we did a spoiler free and a spoiler for it, because I don't think the numbers on the first one were that good. On this one, it'd be like fucking who watched the film?
Because we care about our audience. We want them to know what they might be getting into, and we hope that they share our opinions. It might be like, leave us a review. That's also a plug. But we got a 1-star review because we didn't like Five Nights at Freddy's,
Did we?
Yeah. We released that episode and then we got a 1-star review. And I think they're connected.
I mean, that's more of a fan base thing. Five Nights at Freddy was bullshit. It was dog shit.
And I'm thinking like...
But that was I remember being a one where I was literally sat there going like, fucking hell.
I think I enjoyed it more because it was kind of like
at least it had fucking robots. Like,
had robots,
it
had something interesting,
but
whereas,
it wasn't a good film.
No, it wasn't a good film. But it tried something.
Like this is the same thing. It falls within the same kind of the idea of my head of being like, it's literally like, it's a horror film. I can go to the cinema. I can somewhat sit in the cinema and for most horror films and still kind of somewhat enjoy it as long as it has something that is going on, for the most part. But I don't know. There were some things that I think I said about the low bar, and which my brain is probably stuck to from the first one, where I was expecting this one, and I remember the first one being quite boring, and this one being like, yeah, once we got out of the hospital, and then I kind of liked the logic, like that I was sat there going like, come on, fucking, how is she even like living right now with like her stomach, like basically, and then the car scene happened. Not too long after that, and the car scene was like the exact level of what I would expect to see for someone who is literally dealing after all of this has happened, literally being thrown straight into this. Is like you're going to be fucking. How do you even exist? Because everyone you're going to be thinking is going to try to kill you. Everyone you think is going to attack you. You're literally thinking of anything. So she gets into a car with literally who is her nurse or doctor from the hospital, and she's already mistrusting her, and then she's got a friend in there, and then they stop and get two other people, which is already fucking weird. You're like,
weird as fuck.
I mean, and the logic with the doctor is fucking way off, because it's like, you're suspecting them straight away because it's like, well, you didn't actually fucking ask about anything about the hospital. Why? She never says the question like, why are you out of the hospital? Should we take you back to us? No, we're going to take you to our house. That is already fucking weird. Yeah. The only thing you can assume is that she knows something happened at the hospital, so therefore she's
not going.
Found her. But then to then be like, but you know, I know you're really struggling, and you just literally tried to break your way out of this car, but we're just going to stop and pick up these two random blokes, because that's going to make you feel better. Yeah. Women always feel better when two men are sandwiched next to her, and one of them is just staring at her for no fucking reason, but to just fucking stare at her.
There's nothing that makes...
I'm making this scene sound worse than it is. Yes, the logic doesn't perfectly, but the actress's performance and the way it's shown is actually quite good. Yeah. Up to the point where she like leaps out of the car. You know, it's still kind of like, okay, fucking hell. You know, at least it has her like setting herself up, getting boots on, getting a jacket on, taking any items she can. Like, it feels a little bit more like thought out. Yeah. When she gets to the forest, I like the bit when she is
I like her kind of
literally healing herself up and things like that. And this is the point to which I was like, okay. I mean, the logic's luckily in my head feels more at least thought out than the first one. Yeah. So I'm somewhat in there. And at this point, we'd already had a few scenes of the diner, and we'd had a flashback of the girl. So it's feeling like, okay, this feels like it's building to more. You know, more could be coming. She's got through this bit, but then it doesn't feel like it's too long till she's probably going to either be captured or sent somewhere else or something like that. And then we're probably going to get our first glimpse of the town and what they're like. And that's where it felt like it should have been going.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the line of where instead they go and get a giant hawk.
But it's like, we can't have him be, we can't have her be chased and fight the strangers again. Yeah. That's already happened 4 times. CGI hog.
Yeah, and then we get the CGI. And the weird thing is, like, even when the hog is going down, which you assume is more like something like they've got a wolf or a dog or something, you know, but instead it's this giant, which the hog makes more sense for how it's managed to literally like smash the car up.
Yeah, and there's no barking or growling. Like I liked the idea, but the execution, you know, like
of her survive, but her trying to hide out and survive in the woods and stuff like that, you know. And to that point, I was like, okay, I can kind of get along with this. It's at least, you know, we're slowing down for a minute and not having a chase scene, but that's good. But yeah, then that hog came along, which just felt so out of place and so logically what, and then we obviously have the flashback that shows them playing with little hogs, and then we're like, so we're already getting the idea that yes, you're related to this, and yes, you and the boy have somehow trained a hog over years to chase down a woman until she wants to eat. And it's not
the train hogs.
You can train. Do it. It's not something that people don't do. Just, I don't know, just of all the places of when you got to this scene of her sitting by a campfire having a moment of rest, this felt more like we're going to be like, right, she's travelled all this way now. Surely the next thing is that she's either going to travel or get caught and be taken into town. Yeah. You know, a bit of a breather. But instead we get this hog flying at her.
Hog flying at her. Not in that way either.
Yeah,
You know?
and then from there we start to get more of these things where we either feel repetitive or we feel like we've kind of again forgot the logic. One, she's literally just stitched herself back up, not well. She's just stitched herself back up. She's just had her legs completely like basically chewed on by a hog.
Yeah.
And yet, although in a few after this scene we see her stumbling through the forest, struggling to move her leg.
Yeah.
Directly following the scene when she has gutted the hog, she stands up perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And she is stood there and kind of moves around the hog and doesn't appear to be worried about her fucked up legs. But then the next scene we see her is like her struggling through the forest, and then we get again another chase scene. and this is the point when it starts to be like, this would have been fine up to this point if we then led to a third act where it was something that wasn't just going back to a house like in the original one.
Yes.
And then being that. But the problem also with that is, okay, fine, stick with the Strangers routine, stick with, Strangers is kind of about people invading into a house. But we meet a bunch of characters who seem like they could make a good little roster of characters for a bit more fleshed out, or could be twisted and end up taking her, or then suddenly you see all of the other people start to arrive, or it could have at least been a hub for something, because everyone seemed, it was even mentioned about it being like the lake house or whatever, as if it was a known destination. So that's all good. Problem is, instead of that, we just fucking off all those characters off screen
as well,
which they're all seem to be dead in very similar to the way that she died. But I guess he didn't want to repeat the process of how they died. I do wonder, again, whether even this was slightly cut down.
Maybe.
Because, again, the cuts, as I said, were all related. The cuts and changes and additional shooting of the film was related to the fact that people thought that the last film was far too basically close to the original film, and they felt that there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough new. So they've cut it. I think they've cut a lot of this to be like, no, we want more of the action and less of the people sat around in the house while the strangers stare at them. But that scene at least would have been still at least true to the franchise.
Yeah.
Where at least if they'd attacked her in the house and done the whole thing to the friends and stuff or whatever. But instead we get stupid shit where in a very short amount of time from Gregory driving off, do they somehow become tied up in a chair and have been gutted.
Yeah.
The guy at the front has been killed, but I mean, literally all that happens from when Gregory is outside driving off with her outside, by the way. The doctor is outside with her.
Yeah.
With him, driving off. All we literally have in that time is literally go straight into the dollface one appearing at the door, her trapping herself in there in the bathroom. And if we're playing this out in real time, that's about 4 minutes.
Probably, yeah.
In 4 minutes... They grabbed, they killed the guy at the door somehow, they tied and gagged both of them onto a chair and then gutted them, which killing them in the chair makes no sense if you're not going to show scenes of them basically being tortured like they normally get tortured in the scenes.
Yeah.
So tying them to the chair makes no sense, which is why I think that that's been somewhat cut down.
Yeah.
Because why would they do that? Because otherwise, if they were just dead across the ground... that would make sense, but it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. It makes no sense why she fucking leaves the bathroom in the first place. You're there, like, why? Like, I know they might be outside, but why would you? All you've heard is the thing move. All that sounds like is going to open the door and they're both stood on the other side of the door. Like, but instead they're all gone again. The EMT has arrived. Kind of skip past that bit, but all of this stuff is just led to. So that's not even an interesting third act, because at least if it was a third act where you'd had that, at least I could say that they had a whole horrifying brutality kind of killing in the house where that kind of plays down. But we just skip past that, just like in the hospital when we skip past that.
Don't worry about it, man.
We just skip past that and instead decide that the next thing to do is she's just going to jump into the EMT car without checking anything, assuming the driver's in there.
Yeah,
killing off all of the earlier character development, the idea that she's very hostile towards anyone who's around her, and she is even when she's in the house. But apparently, jumping into the car, it's fine. It's all right. I'm going to trust that EMT is there, even though it's been weirdly sat out there, and she knows that multiple people have been killed since.
Yeah, I'll be fine, mate. Don't worry about it.
I'll just jump in. And then you get the chase scene. Another car chase scene. This is the second or maybe third time she's been in a car driving.
Maybe.
And I'll go back to the other one where she jumps in a scene with a car with someone, because that one's related more to the reshoots. But when she drives down that road and she sticks in her seatbelt, and you're there like, okay, so she's round her neck. We knew that. We knew she was going to come back alive, because come on, you're not driving away now.
Yeah.
And you think, great, you've done that. You're hitting a high speed, and you're going to hit the brakes and make her fly through the wind, which seemed more logical.
Classic.
Instead, she's like, the logical thing to do now is drive straight, because she swerves into the log that's on the road. So my logical thing when I'm extremely injured and hurt is to do something that will most likely kill me.
Yeah.
And everyone else. I've tried to survive this whole film, but instead I'm going to drive into a log at the side of the road. And she does swerve into that. She definitely swerves into it, thinking that that's the way. So she's now protected, but braking would have done the job probably just as well, or at least got her off you for a second. But no, and then we're into the ending, which is that the baby doll is dead. The girl we've been following, and he's standing over her, and he's standing over her, all sad. And we know who. Yes, I guess one of them are. If it's the girl in the diner, and that's follow through, then we know who that person is. Again, when she pulls off that mask, though, yes, we got the flashback, but I just still felt a bit like, I was like, and why should I care?
Yeah,
because I don't know these townspeople. So if every townsperson is revealed to be one of the killers, the problem is, like, you haven't spent 3 films telling me about this town and this village and how they might have turned to this and how they might have become it, which sounds like an interesting idea of how to play out across 3 films.
Yeah.
Instead, we followed one character surviving and then chasing and then running and then chasing, and that's just play that, and that's just why it is like it falls into that spectrum of like I'm still going with watchable. I'm just saying it's not something that you should be like. You should never walk into a film like this thinking that it's going to be like great. But you knew that was chapter 1. We knew we were walking into something that maybe people
like
were describing as
committed.
shit. I was going to mention, so I will mention quickly about the
Can I mention? And you tell me if it's the right one.
Yeah.
Because if so, this just sums up my thoughts of the film. Is they introduce a character and you think, oh, this could be interesting, and then they die about 15 seconds later. So the old woman who at the barn, who's like, oh, I'm not going to call the sheriff. The sheriff is, and then she gets shot with the bow and arrow, the crossbow. I was like, oh, maybe give us a couple of minutes to have a chat so she can say, oh, what's going on in this town? Who knows? And then kill the old woman. And there's a moment in the cafe where the sheriff and the deputy are talking, and he's like, should we call in the FBI? Should we call in somebody? And he says, no, it doesn't usually end well with us. Which is like, oh, is that a little red herring?
Trying to hide
involvement. Yeah. And then they go to the house, and like some guy from Internal Affairs is there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, this is good because maybe people have picked up that this certain area people are going vanishing, so they've sent somebody in. Oh, we've got another character. We're going to find like another layer to this story. No, let's just shoot him in the eye 15 seconds after introducing him. It's so fucking stupid. It's so, and no doubt they're going to go in the third one. They're going to explore that more. So that will leave me even angrier because this whole film is just a protracted chase scene and just doesn't need to happen. But is that what the bit you know? Of course it is.
So,
of course it fucking is.
Yeah, it's the character, which is, it says here, played by Billy Burford, who is an investigator for the Oregon State Internal Affairs. So originally, this film had an entire subplot of him investigating the town, which I assume would have also involved Richard Brake's character, as they know him as trying to keep him off the tracks. I think they may have kept some of that stuff of where he's almost trying to like go along and somewhat in the background cover the tracks and stuff while he was investigating. So originally it said had a subplot involving a present day investigation. So I had a present day investigation into the Stranglers' identities, but apparently upon further review, Harlin and co realised the story threads didn't fit the DNA of the franchise because they never had anything like that in the franchise. Fucking hell. Let's introduce something new into a franchise that is not really working out, to be honest. That had one chapter and then had another one that was ill received and has had a chapter 1 of a new franchise that is ill received. Should we go down a new route? Now let's stay closer to the DNA of what is a film about psychos that invade a house and kill those people in that house. what else is there to fucking into?
Yeah, none of apart from the first one, these films haven't really been, they haven't been well received. Should we try something different? No, we'll get it eventually.
No, so apparently this is all based on getting feedback from us, basically, from not literally us, or we would have had some things to say.
It would be a very different film. It might not have happened if it had been us.
But, well, he literally would have gone back and killed Renny Harlin.
Not killed him, just stopped him from making it. And
I don't think that would have gone that way.
Maybe by accident.
They always say that.
They always do, don't they? It was an accident. It was a crime of passion.
But yeah, he said, "We listened to the audience. There were a lot of hardcore fans that were unhappy with the first movie. One reason being that you can't remake a classic without people feeling like they're doing it all wrong. However, we had to do the first one that way in order to set up the scenario for the continuation." So the first one had to be like a retread of thing, which, fair enough, that's somewhat understandable, the first one, before it delves into actually more of that. But so we knew that it was going to be tough, but we listened and read the commentary. So apparently they read your comments and they decided that this is what was best for it, to cut out all the parts, subplot about, finding deeper into the town. So I assume an investigation into the strange identity would involve maybe actually finding out about the town and going into the town. They decided instead of that, what you wanted was someone running, being chased. They decided to cut out all of that part, and instead, I assume, they went back and added in extra scenes of chases. They added in that hog.
They got feedback from fucking Wile E. Coyote and somebody who just loves watching the Olympics. And they're like, what do you like? Oh, I love chasing. You got to have that in your film. Yeah, sure, mate. Just redo the whole thing.
But to be fair to it, those flashbacks did not exist before they went back and did reshoots. So originally it would have had all the investigation stuff and it wouldn't have the flashbacks. So although it was replaced with something that was one of the stronger parts of the film, surely if all of those things existed and had moved less of the focus away from running through a forest and a hospital and a fucking house and whatever,
barn, and then in the woods,
and all of those things, we might feel like we had more of what felt like a film and an actual town and an actual fleshed out bit. Instead, like, apparently just, no, we're not going to do that. And by the way, just so you feel better about chapter 3, they did 1 week of additional photography for chapter 2, which was basically, I think, to add in those flashbacks.
Yeah.
So that's why the rest of it was basically cut off, and they cut out all the investigation scenes. And they've done 3 weeks of additional photography for chapter 3. So they've 3 weeks is almost as long as they shot the entire 3 films. So maybe the third one might actually be better.
Maybe.
Or, unless what he did was go back and add more chase scenes. In which case, the third one will be more chase scenes.
What I want to do is, when we go and see this third one, I want us to go to the cinema. I want the credits to start, and then I just want them to put Deep Blue Sea on. I don't know if he can rescue this, because those flashbacks which he added, they must have maybe added like 6-7 minutes to the running time. You're telling me that you can add that, and you're like, oh, we've got to get rid of this really potentially interesting subplot, and then you've got like 6 minutes, 8 minutes dedicated to a CGI hog. Like, you couldn't lose that.
Yeah.
That is like the crux of the film. Like, is this massive hog chase?
Yeah, the investigator just suddenly appearing at the house is more, like, it's just like seems weirdly out of place now. It feels like it might as well have just been removed, because to be fair, her driving in the car doesn't really take her anywhere anyway. You probably literally, instead of her she goes to the cabin and has a few more little flashbacks of what happened to them that night. Yeah, okay, little revisiting. But considering this is like the day after it doesn't feel like we really need to revisit this scene anyway. So what should have happened was go through the forest and then just cut it straight into a scene where she walks out and there's the lake house. I'm not saying this makes the film better. I'm just saying, why keep in a shot of him just dying just for the sake of it being like, well, who the fuck was he?
Yeah.
Like, because it makes even less sense. You should have just removed him completely from that scene. And if that meant the cabin part had to go, well, I barely remember anything that happened because all she does is eat crackers. You were in the toilet.
I would protest. Yeah.
or you just had a break from the film.
Had to have a break. Went for a breather for fucking feel like I'm not being chased.
I mean, the only thing I can say is that for chapter 3, looking ahead, is the fact that if they have done reshoots, we've got to hope that if the flashbacks were the main things that were only added into the film, then that seems to lean towards the idea that they realised that they'd focused too much on one section of the film and that actually needed to include more of the backstory of it. If the third part is going to end up being basically that we've had two really crap films to lead to a part where they're actually this is when we're going to actually delve into the town and we're actually going to reveal it all. This is me saying it and not believing it at all, because I think we're going to pick up exactly after the scene and we're going to start with a scene that involves being chased through the woods, which has happened in both of the previous films for extended running. But I would like to believe they went back and did 3 weeks worth of shooting because they realised that they actually needed to delve into the Stranger's history, which is, by the way, I'm pretty sure what this 3-chapter film trilogy was originally meant to be, the origins of them and to reveal the backstory of the Strangers. We are 2 films in and we know about one girl that killed Tamara, and we know who one of them is. Yeah. We know very little about the people in the diner except for the fact that they just talk about the fact that people died and they act weird.
Yeah.
I had the same amount of character development from the first couple of minutes of Friday the 13th. And it did take 2 films, and I still had people being chased through the woods, but at least I had some character development in between those scenes. So we're now talking about a film from 1980 which did the same thing better,
yeah. And it's an odd marketing strategy to make 2 dog shit films in the hope that people's expectations will be so low they think the third one's okay.
Yeah,
you know.
I think the problem is they made 3 dog shit films and then they released the first film, and then the studio are now in the position of, well, what the fuck do we do with these now?
Yeah.
To be fair, so actually because the first film technically had a budget of like 8 million and it made 48, so it was actually a successful film.
Of course.
So therefore, they did actually have reasons to release it. I kept wondering, based on the reaction and stuff, I was like, is this going to end up like on Netflix or Shudder and just be streaming? I mean, we'll see how this next one does, but I do. That's why it's like, is the third one getting a cinema release, or are we going to be soon watching it on Tubi?
It does feel like that, you know.
But I don't know. If it was made for the same amount of money, then to be fair, the plus side with horror films is it doesn't take a lot for them to actually make profits.
No, but it also doesn't take much for them to be entertaining,
yes,
which this film just struggles with. And this is where it feels like is the first one was successful, but that's fine because everybody puts their hand on the stove once, and you're like, fuck, that hurt, I'm not doing that again. And then Renny Harlin's like, oh, you can do it again if you want, so you do it, and then he's like, well, the third time it's not going to hurt as much, you do it and it hurts again, and eventually you've got to think, am I the problem?
I think you just use an analogy that would also work for anal sex.
I mean, it did feel like I was getting fucked at certain times of this film, without lube as well.
It might feel better, but they still don't love it.
You know what to expect, so it doesn't hurt quite as much. I think that's a perfect analogy for this film.
We've done 2 chapters. It says early 2026 is the expectation for this one, but they delayed. To be fair, they didn't like rush the second one out because it came out in the first one was May 2024, and this one is now obviously September 2025. So they didn't have a release date for this for a while. So the studio definitely, even though it made money, they were definitely still questioning, because if it had really been like loved, then they would have definitely gone. Obviously, I assume the reshoots is partially why it was slightly delayed, because they needed to do the reshoots and stuff. But that would imply, if that's all done and they think Chapter 3's all good, unless he reads the comments again for this one and goes, oh fuck.
Oh no, what have I done wrong?
They didn't want chase scenes.
And now the note.
And now he's going to go back and he's going to do another 3 weeks of reshoots where he removes all the chase scenes and now gives us a whole film that's just about investigations of the town, which sounds like it's more interesting, but I could imagine him going completely the other way with it. So it's like, nobody died in this film.
It's got to be like
we just talked to people in the town.
It's going to be like the reverse Halloween Ends, where it's like 2 films that are really quite similar in tone.
Yeah.
And you think, this third one's going to be really following, and it's like, no, completely different.
Yeah.
Instead, he's just going to be like, I need to think of something. and the strangers aren't even going to be in it.
This is the one time when that would be a good thing.
Maybe.
If we get to the chapter 3 and it's like, this is actually completely different, and for some reason we're no longer seeing Maya that much, it's like, actually, that might actually
Maybe.
work in his favour. But yeah, we will see, because we have committed to this. And we will go to this, and I can't wait to see what we feel like when we step into that screening for the third one and see that, fuck it, are we doing this?
And then we see that it's just Sly Stallone hanging from a cliff. and the whole thing has been a cliffhanger prequel in reality.
If you walked in and it turned out that he was just like, yeah, I did 3 weeks of reshoots. I just did Deep Blue Sea 2.
Yeah.
with Thomas J back kind of thing. You would be like, this is the greatest moment and you've done this. Well done.
If it's the long game, that's what he had to do to try and trick them into letting him do it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, his set's
He
got a lot of
knew-
water in
Renny
there.
Harlin had a plan. He knew that chapter 1, the studio are already not paying attention. By chapter 2, the studio don't give a shit anymore. By chapter 3, they're just like, fucking release it so we can get done with this.
Yeah.
They haven't checked it. They haven't checked what's on that print. It's going to be released worldwide, and it's going to be Strangers chapter 3, and then you're going to see LL Cool J,
Yeah.
and you're going to be like, rejoice.
Oh my god, at last it's happened. I mean, it has Deep Blue Sea 2 and 3, but we don't count this.
Direct to DVD don't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Well, we might get the next one direct to DVD, straight to chapter 3. It does feel like that's how it might end up being.
The funniest thing is that how low would that be? It's not even like direct to streaming or Blu-ray. We only released it on DVD.
We only released it on
We
DVD.
released it on Betamax.
Released on Betamax.
And a VHS copy if you want to watch it.
We included it in one of those magazines where you buy the first one for 99p. You know?
Britain brought back the video nasty rule in order to stop people from watching that film.
But you publicly execute it. Yeah, I don't think we've got anything else to say about
I
this.
think
Let's flash it.
we talked for longer than we wanted to about it, and we slightly differed from our spoiler-free reaction to then pretty much once we've broken it down, being like, there's like 3 good scenes in this film,
Yeah.
which is great if it wasn't an hour and a half film, which has probably about 100 scenes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, if you actually liked this film, come and let us know your thoughts. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. I'd be interested to hear from anybody who can defend this. Five Nights at Freddy's, I get because it's got. You tried, and then
I tried to be as nice as I could.
and then I infected you. You know, though my rage is untethered and knows no bounds. Remember to hit that subscribe button, leave us a lovely review, and we will see you for some great films in October. Take care. Play us out, boys.